Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian, and you are listening to Be Insured, where we talk about business, leadership, and insurance. That way, on your worst day, when you need it the most, you will be insured. A lot of company leaders and business owners think the secret to motivating their employees is to pay them more money. We've been told that high-end compensation packages that are complex and use multiple pieces of information will help us attract better talent, and that well-paid employees perform better and they stick around. That is not always the case. When you look at the actual data, it's actually completely false. Our guest today wrote an entire book that unpacks these myths and uncovers the three things your employees really want that have absolutely nothing to do with money. Grant Botma is the author of The Problem Isn't Their Paycheck, a book about how you can attract top talent and build a thriving company culture. Grant, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I'm also excited to be joined by my awesome co-host,
Eric Gestring, the Mardigian Agency.
Grant, before we dive into this topic, can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what led you to write this book?
Yeah, so I own a company called Stewardship where we do home loans, insurance, and investments with wisdom and love. So we help people with money. And over the years, my team was able to do a lot of really great things and started getting recognized nationally. And some associations asked me to speak at different events. As I started speaking at the events, people asked for more information from me, and a publisher then approached me and said, hey, you should put some of this stuff into a book. So that's what I did, and now here we are. It's an Amazon #1 bestseller in 6 different categories, which was completely unexpected by me. So it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal story. I love how
he said the love.
Yes, yeah, the wisdom and love. I actually hadn't heard that part of your story, or at least I overlooked it. So that's a phenomenal subtitle for your company.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Yeah, it's weird. Personal finances is one of those things that there's just either a conscious or subconscious fear that most people have when they go into connecting with a professional on it. Either because they're intimidated, they don't really know what's going on, or maybe they've gotten burnt in the past, or maybe they've heard about somebody that's gotten burnt in the past. The reality of personal finances is many professionals, they have the ability to take advantage of a consumer to earn more commission.
Yeah.
And we believe that there's a right way to helping a consumer with their finances. And you can do that with wisdom, and especially if you do that with some genuine love and care for them, man, it can be a really big benefit for them. So, yeah, that's what we do.
It's amazing how the industry it will reward agents for doing the wrong thing for the client. And I've told my parent company that if you want to keep me around forever, then you just let me take care of my clients. And as long as I'm paid well to take care of them, you will never have an issue with me.
That's beautiful.
So, Grant, why isn't money a good motivator for your best people? Why is it that we say, or you say, that money is not the best motivator?
Well, it's not sustainable for 2 reasons. If you're trying to attract talent by having the highest paid comp plan, when someone next door or in your town decides to pay more than you, then your employees leave. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, that costs your company essentially up to 2 years of that person's annual salary when you add up all the additional costs that are involved.
Yep.
So losing employees, it's expensive, man, and that's not sustainable. But more importantly, when you bring people in who are money motivated, most of the time those folks have a selfish bend to their attitude and to their character. And if you want to do something that will really make your job as a manager or a leader tough, go ahead and try to lead a whole bunch of selfish folks.
Oh my gosh.
It'll destroy a company culture, and it's not a sustainable way of running a business.
Yeah, that's what you use a phrase. It's not self-starting team, but like a self-managing team in your book.
Self-directed.
Self-directed.
Yeah, self-directed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. Like, money is important. Okay, let's get that out of the way. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's one of the motivating factors that's there, but it's only the 4th most motivating factor.
Wow.
And And really, what you have to do with compensation, what you have to do with money, is you need to make sure that you're paying your employees fairly, right? So if you're listening to this conversation hoping that you can get away with paying your employees way less so that you can make way more, you stop listening, because that's not what this is about. Pay your employees fairly, but you don't have to have the highest comp plan to attract the top talent. Study after study after study, whether it's been LinkedIn or Stanford or Harvard or Cal Berkeley, the studies have shown that people that have the highest skills, people that have the highest paying degrees, will quite literally take a job somewhere else for up to a 25% pay cut if they know that the company that they're working for is going to have the 3 most motivating things that I talk about in the book.
Yeah, and I've internally in my consulting business with insurance agents came up with the phrase non-monetary compensation. It's a fancy way to say the 3 things that aren't money. One of them is actually one of your 3 things that you list is one of our core values. And so, could you please talk about the 3 things that employees, the non-monetary compensation that actually matters when it comes to building a self-directed team?
Yeah, if you want a team of people that are going to thrive, if you want to attract the top talent, you must give them these 3 things, and you must do it intentionally. You need to give them autonomy. That's freedom. Everybody wants that. Nobody wants to feel enslaved in what they're doing, especially in their job, if they have to go there 5 days a week and spend most of their life there, right?
Right.
The next one is affirmation. People want to know if they're doing it right. They also want to know if they're doing it wrong. And people want to be affirmed and encouraged that the way that they're doing things is correct. They want to become a master of a craft. Over and over again, there have been examples. I mean, even just think back to the coal mines, or there's still mines now here in Arizona where there's people that every time they go down in there, they know that they're taking years off of their life breathing in stuff, and their boss treats them like crap. But they don't care because they're really, really good at it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're scared to go take another job because it's like, I'm a master at this. This is the one thing in my life I'm really, really great at, right? People want to be a master of a craft. They want to be affirmed to know they're doing it right. And they love to know when they're doing something right. But most importantly, people want to do work that matters. The first most motivating thing to the human brain is purpose. People want to have a purpose to pursue, and more importantly, what I call it in the book, they want a unified purpose. This is something that they can pursue that requires a little bit of selflessness, so where you have to give of yourself and you have to sacrifice. And if you get a sacrifice with a group of other people, it'll unify them together. And that means they're now doing work that matters with a community, so that every time they come into work, they get to make the world a better place with a whole bunch of other people who are making similar sacrifices to them. And that is extremely motivating.
Yeah, that's one of our core values is meaning. And that's really what the driver is there. It's amazing. And we see it. So my background, I was a police officer for 8 years, and Eric was in the Navy for
6 years.
6 years. And I mean, we saw that in those jobs, especially in today's world for police officers. Why would any of them stay? It's because they really, really believe there's meaning behind their work, that there's purpose, that they're needed and necessary. Why would people stay in a job that's thankless and is being treated poorly today for any other reason?
Also with leadership, I think you and I have seen a lot of how empowering individuals and ripping their ceilings off or their false beliefs of what they're capable of is more beneficial for us and our team than just telling them to do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You don't want a bunch of yes men. I feel like you're more successful with what Grant said in his 3 things.
Well, it's amazing that the same cultures who want yes men are the same ones who treat their employees like prisoners.
And think pay is the only way that they're going to stay.
No, I worked at a Fortune 500 company for 5 years, and no one was allowed to have a window seat unless you're an executive, because it wasn't fair to the people who didn't get the window seats. And so I felt like a prisoner, honestly. I didn't even have a window view. Anyways, Grant, why are these?
Wait, hold on real quick.
Yeah.
So you guys weren't paid the $1 million a year for being a police officer and being in the Navy?
Yeah, can you believe that?
Wow, that's weird. Yeah.
I know, and I was willing to die for my city.
Honestly, I think that's the least amount of money I made my entire life was when I was in the military.
Yeah. Yeah,
right. But there's two things that both the military and the police typically do very, very well. There's a lot of affirmation in most situations. I know there's some social unrest about it now, but in most situations, there's a lot of communities out there that affirm people who are in those service type positions. Yeah. It's frequent. Well, somebody will congratulate one of you two for your service, right? Yes. That's affirmation. That's a community of people who are being thankful to you, and that's a big deal, and that motivates you to keep on keeping on.
Amen.
But another thing that these people do too, whether it's the military or police, is the training. At least to start. Holy cow, that's a lot.
Yep.
And you're being taught how to become a master of a craft, which creates some confidence, which also motivates you to keep on keeping on. But more importantly, like you said, look, there's this purpose. There's a reason. Everybody knows what that reason is while you're there, and that's a big deal.
And there's even, Eric was Naval Special Warfare, and in the assignments that I had at the police department, if you become good at it, you get the autonomy too. And so a lot of people stay because they can police how they want to police, which is, most cops are really, really good humans that want to build relationships with pastors and local community members. And they want to know the kids' names on every block and play Where I live, we just had two of our DeWitt Township cops stop and play basketball with a group of teenagers. And it was all over our Facebook community page. I mean, if that's not autonomy, that you can stop and play hoops with a bunch of teenagers, I don't know what is autonomy. You're right. What a great example of a culture that keeps people and retains top talent for a long time when it's not a money thing.
So Grant,
correct. Yeah, that's great.
Why are these such great motivators, and why are they each so important to individuals, and what about them leads to better performance and less turnover for a business or a team? Yeah.
So, whenever you give somebody freedom, whether that be maybe even freedom in the way that you compensate them. Say you do heavy merit-based pay, so that the more that they do work, the more their income increases, so you're not putting a ceiling there, right? The more that you give people freedom where you put yourself in their shoes and you think to yourself, what are ways that I'm maybe making them feel trapped or enslaved in any way? How can I give them a little bit more? Is what that does is it creates a complete paradigm shift. And that is where you're giving trust instead of making them earn trust. And I genuinely believe, especially when you start out a relationship with an employee, trust is given, not earned. Now, look, they can have that trust be taken away, right? But if you give somebody the trust and you really pour into them and you give them that freedom, is what it does is it creates a culture where you do not have employees or people that are waiting on the manager or leader's cues to actually work. You're creating a team of people who are what we were talking about earlier, self-directed.
Yep.
And now they have this creative freedom, motivational freedom to actually go out and serve the people that you're trying to serve in your business in the best way that they see fit. You give the guidelines, right? Like you were talking about earlier, you said one of your character traits, you got to give a vision and a mission, and you have to lead in that direction. But whenever you trust and you give some of that freedom, it now allows people to thrive because they don't have these shackles on and they can just move forward. An example of that is I literally just got done with I take a month off in the spring and a month off in the fall. So there's 2 months where I don't really work at all. And this is the third year in a row that when I was gone for a month, my team broke records.
Wow.
Like they quite literally broke every record that we had performance-wise. And there's a lot of managers and leaders that would say, oh, man, how do you do that? If I can't even take a vacation because, one, my employees won't know what to do because they're waiting on me to tell them what to do, or I don't know if they'll take advantage of me or whatever. This whole trust relationship with my team has already been established. I've given them the trust, and they're extremely self-directed. And they're so good at what they do, and they absolutely care about the mission that we have, that they pursue it whether I'm here or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a part of who they are as human beings.
Yeah, they're empowered, and they know it. It's not a question that they have to have an answer to. It's already been answered. How powerful.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we got about 50 seconds here, Grant, and I want you to talk about how people can get a copy of your book. They can follow you on your podcast. How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so best way to connect with me is on Instagram. My handle is Grant Botma, and all my resources there. I show up pretty much every day. Or you could search my name, Grant Botma, on Amazon. You can get a copy of the book in a hardcover, paperback. It's also on Audible, Kindle, all the things.
Yeah, and I gift that book often to other agents in particular when they have cultural issues, which is very common in our industry. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Grant. We look forward to following you as our podcast listeners will. And be sure to connect with us at the Mardigian Agency on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Be Insured.